this content is for kids.
It's not for kids.
Isn't that what I said?
No, it's not for kids. If you are 13 years or younger, this is not for you. Do I have to kill somebody in order to actually make that point across?
No, man, you don't have to kill
Wait
no
a
one.
second.
Oh, no.
We return to our planet. The High Court may well sentence you to torture.
He likes movies, we like movies. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world. I'd buy that for $1.
Greetings! You're watching SeptumSin versus the World, and we're here with another film psychoanalysis.
I don't know what they have to say, it makes no difference anyway, whatever it is, I'm against it. No matter what it is or who commenced it, I'm against it.
Today, we're talking about the 2022 Mark Polonia film, Sharkula. This is a pretty plain DVD, which is standard fare for this type of film. It does have some special features, which include a director's commentary, which has Mark Polonia and Jeff Kirkendall included. So you've got Dracula and the director doing this commentary, and you have some trailers to boot. I always ask about commentaries on these things, so I got it. I got my commentary.
Congratulations.
Congratulations!
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mark Polonia. I do really appreciate it. I know you didn't do it for me, but I like to pretend you did. So let's talk about it. The plot is pretty simple. A couple of guys are looking to earn a bit of money for college, and they journey to a small New England town where they take a job working at a local harbor. Little do they know, the town is run by Dracula and his master, a vampire shark known as Sharkula.
And if you do drugs, you go to hell before you die. Please.
I almost wish I had a little puppet shark for this. So the writing. Let's talk about the writing, as it is fairly standard Polonia / B-movie fare. It borrows a lot from the Dracula story. You can tell Mark Polonia has watched a lot of Dracula films and probably a lot of shark films because he is on a shark kick lately.
Who knows where thoughts come from? They just appear.
But there are a couple of things that I'm curious about. Like, would there be any lore behind this dancer? I think, according to the commentary, these were part of stock footage, which is a shame because it is beautiful. Beautifully shot stock footage. And it doesn't really have a lot of explanation, but it is used liberally throughout the movie. And it does look good. The biggest issue I would have with the writing is there are lulls, but I'm kind of used to that. One of the things that I wasn't as happy with Hell on the Shelf is that there were some lulls that really kind of slowed down the pacing. And this happens here, though it's not as big an offense as that film, so it's not so bad. Let's look at acting next. So there really are, I mean, most of the film is your standard B-movie fare. People giving a performance, it's not particularly great, not particularly bad. You know, I sometimes wonder if the best performances in B-movies are intentionally bad or just unintentionally bad because they add an element of comedy to it.
Ah, you fool! You fell victim to one of the classic blunders!
In this case, they were just kind of there. They did their job and they moved on. There are exceptions to the rule. Let's start with Jeff Kirkendall as Dracula. he brings an interesting energy to Dracula. It does feel like this man who used to be a domination tool, he used to be able to dominate others, and he was in charge, but he's been under the thumb of a greater authority for so long, you can feel that it's kind of worn away at him. He doesn't feel as intimidating as he was. And you can even feel that even with the female character, female lead, he is a bit of a pushover in many ways. And I like that. It's kind of an interesting way of looking at Dracula, and Jeff Kirkendall really brings it home. The one that I feel really shines a light in this is Kyle Rappaport. Kyle's roles are up and down in some areas. Some he's really good at, some he's okay at. And this is one where I think he shines quite well. He plays Renfield, and he brings a creepy energy to the character that makes this movie a lot better than I thought it would be. I really was impressed by it. He could give these types of stares, or when he does get emotional, it kind of shocks you a little bit because you're not used to seeing that emotion out of the character, and this does bring the character home. I felt like he was going to do good as this character, but I didn't know he was going to do as good as he did. So, you know what? Here's to you, Kyle. Great job. I hope more people see it. I do think that by looking at these two alone, it's worth at least one watch.
It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
Of this film. I'm not sure if it's worth the 5 to 6 watches I did of the film to prepare for this, but I do think it is worth at least the one. So let's go to production design. There are good things and there are bad things. Let's start with the stock footage. Amazing stock footage. I like how they put this in. You really did feel like you were in a New England town. I didn't even realize that a lot of the shots were not done anywhere near the water, and that's good. That shows a lot of skill in that regard. I love the stock footage at the beginning where you kind of go through the reef and they do it at the end, and I really enjoyed the dancer. That was really cool. I mean, the camera, everything was just crystal clear. It's an amazing scene. The other thing I really liked about this, it was the shark. I thought that it was hilarious. I like the weird stop motion flying bat shark thing, and I really like the shark puppet. I wanted more shark puppet kills. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest disappointments here, is there were not enough shark puppet kills. We want more.
Get used to disappointment.
And finally, I think that the design on the kind of shark-vampire hybrid that they did at the very end was also a pretty cool design. If you look carefully, the webbing kind of falls off the guy's hands, but that's alright. I mean, again, it's one of those things you gotta kind of be examining it like me to really catch some of these things. And watch the commentary where they talk about it. The negative is the rest of it camera work-wise. There is a very washed-out look to the film, which, according to the commentary, was to simulate being at the ocean with kind of white dirt and all of this. And it also accompanied a lot of blur, which usually comes from poor lighting, though I'm not sure if that's the case here. And the first scene, which is kind of a flashback scene, it's very dreamlike. The blurriness really does help with that scene. It does really good. And I'll admit, I stopped noticing it the first couple of times when I watched it through, but as I watched it more, I realized that that blurriness was present for the entirety of the film when you're dealing with the main characters, you're not dealing with some of the stock footage. And it is distracting, and I admit, I did not like that. That's probably one of the weakest aspects of this film, and the most detracting thing about it. No, sir, I don't like it. I was for the most part able to get over it, but I did want to bring it up. Because if you're looking for something crystal clear, just look at the dancing scenes. Music. One of the final things, but really fun. I like the music. It was pretty standard fare. I like to say that a lot because that's what it is. It's something you expect. But the Sharkula theme is something altogether. I had to do it. I don't know. It was just such a fun theme. It's very lively. It's that surfer type theme. And it's just great. It was a wonderful thing. I hope to hear more of it. I'm probably going to be putting it up for Versus Awards next year because it is just such a fun theme. Very enjoyable. Great job. So overall, this is an unusual film. Mark Polonia has a quite varied library filled with plenty of good and plenty of bad films. But always, we start with an interesting concept that has the potential to build to something quite spectacular. A movie about a vampire shark is a great concept, and though the movie may be slow at times, and a little bit flawed, I would still consider it a moderate success. The acting, and some of the music, and a couple of the extra effects make this worth at least one watch. In the vast sea of Polonia films, Sharkula is a standout among the waves. So this has been SeptumSin, and now we're going to take a break as we are going to come back and do the psychoanalysis. If you do not want spoilers, do not watch this until you have seen the film. If spoilers don't bother you, come back. But until then, we're going to show you the trailer for Sharkula.
Something weird is going on around here.
Your name is really Renfield?
It's a bit odd, but harmless.
No, master, please!
I think our boss has some weird hypnotic hold over these towns. The shock and die are intertwined.
Sounds like a load of crap.
If he knew the twisted mind of yours!
If he disobeyed one more time, you'll end up with a sacrifice!
Sharks. Sharks?
Ah, sharks.
We bring you our sacrifice for your bloodlust. What's your problem, asshole?
I saw a giant shark with glowing red eyes in the water. What is it?
Sharkula! Sharkula! The devil fish!
Okay, we're back. I hope you enjoyed that. So if you want to get a copy of Sharkula, it's pretty easily available. Amazon has it. Not too bad a price, actually. You get what you pay for. It's not too bad. Not too shabby. So let's go ahead and get into our analysis. We get to start in the scene where Dracula is chased by a bunch of peasants. One of them played by the director, Mark Polonia. They chase him off a cliff after stabbing him, and he is attacked by a shark. And this is the birth of Sharkula. This is very interesting. They kind of used a washed out lighting here, and you could see the kind of blurriness of it that makes it into sort of a dreamlike quality state. I do like this for the flashback. I think it suits it. It does feel like you're flashing back to the past. And I'm quite pleased with this. I think that this is, in general, a great thing. Unfortunately, it doesn't work as well for the rest of the film, but we'll get to that. So, one of the things I wanted to point out here is that the footage is kind of this cycled stock footage of the ocean. You kind of hear the Sharkula theme. It's really cool. I like the look of this, and they recycle it at the end. And it doesn't bother me all that much because, again, it is kind of cool. I really like the theme. It's really fun. And in general, it's great overall. So we start our film out with a couple of college kids who are going to enjoy their summer job at a place called the Chum Bucket. As they say, chum is the kind of fish guts and stuff that they feed to attract sharks. Yeah. I'm not sure I want to eat there, but I understand the concept of the name. And they kind of use this dirt road. They wash it out intentionally to make it look more like sand, so you feel like you are close to the ocean, even though they're nowhere near the ocean. And I'm going to give them this. They do a great job of making you feel like it was filmed near the ocean when it really wasn't, for the most part. There are a couple of scenes near the water, but not very many. Again, though, I think the blurring comes with a double-edged blade, as that blurriness and motion tends to accompany it. Because when the lighting is kind of off with the camera, you tend to get a lot more blurring. And this may have been intentional, but it does get distracting throughout the film. So it's here we kind of see our first footage of Sharkula. And I gotta admit, seeing that did excite me. It is really cool, and I thought maybe this will get us to a pretty quick start. So we are introduced to Kyle as Renfield, and he is very creepy. He has that kind of far-off stare that gives you that idea that something's not quite right from him. And I think Kyle was just a really good fit for this. He did an excellent job. And this guy, Renfield, tells them about their situations, like, hey, you're here, these are the rules, don't go out after dark, yada, yada, yada. There's no nightlife, no real women here to pick up, sorry, dudes, just work. And guess what? I am the person who does everything here. I'm like Andy Griffin in that, Dick Van Dyke episode. I just put on the next hat. I'm the cook, I'm the law officer, I'm everything in this town. Except for the historian, and that's a different character. So this hotel looks really good here. I was told this was actually the house. I think this is actually Mark Polonia's house. And it does do a good job. They did an excellent job of making it look like an old hotel or even a house that was converted to one. So great job here. And some of the lighting effects, especially when you've got Dracula communicating later with Renfield, are pretty good. I like that blue light. So you do see that there's definitely something wrong with Renfield later coming in. It's like, yes, master, they are here, and communicating his interests. This is also where we get our first kill with Sharkula. We got a drunk who is probably in one of the few scenes that is done on the water. I'm not really sure if there's any others. I think that the scenes that you see scattered throughout with the vampire woman and the flame dancer are stock footage. I want to say that's what they're indicating. If it's not, then kudos on the costume design and films and lighting here. I wish that this was the quality for the rest of the film because it was amazing. But they do reuse that. I think they recognize how awesome they are too. But this drunk guy, he kind of taunts him. It's a really fun performance, and Sharkula just like eats him. I want more puppet kills. There are so few puppet kills in this, but this one was one. And you also get to see the first stop motion footage of Sharkula becoming kind of bat shark. And again, that's just in general fun in its absurdity. It just is. So it's the next day. Renfield takes them out to look at the docks. we get our first glimpse of our female protagonist as they catch her in the window, and Renfield's like, don't you dare talk to her. And here's your jobs. Here's a bunch of crates. You gotta load them. Don't look at them. He's like, well, we weren't planning on it, but now you made us curious. Well, too bad. And on a side note, I've noticed that this is a town of Arkham, which is kind of interesting. I wonder if they have something similar with Mark Polonia that John Johnson has with his Nidhogg thing, because John Johnson loves using Nidhogg.
Who knows where thoughts come from? They just appear.
But we won't know. So we get to see a little bit more of our dancing as one of these women that you kind of have a scene earlier with Renfield kind of messing with, because she's going to be the victim. So she's walked down and to the beach. Great costume effects on Dracula's minions. Mark Polonia always does an amazing job on these kind of rotting corpse looks. It just is it's just a really cool look. And of course she gets eaten by the puppet shark. And they get to look out of the window, which, I mean, it's a beautiful day-night from the window. Lots of light for the nighttime. But still, you know, and you also get a scene later on, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. So later on, the next day, one of our two college students gets an actual look at Sharkula. You see the glowing eyes. You think that the shark is going to attack, but our female protagonist, she throws a wooden cross in the water and scares him away. A lot of the cool shark effects you see, like the shark fin, I've heard they are reused. But again, I think that Mark Polonia does a great job reusing a lot of stock footage. You can usually tell what's reused just because there's very little blur on some of it, and the lighting is very different, but still very cool that we got this, and a lot of it does look somewhat seamless. But they have a little bit of talk, and she kind of lets him know, you know, that this is not the best town to be in, and gets him a little bit more, what's the word, curious. But in the meantime, we've got Renfield talking about his conflict, and the Renfields usually have an internal conflict. A lot of it's related to them wanting to, I mean, Renfield wanting to be a vampire, and that's why he serves Dracula typically. And this Renfield, he really wants the women, but he also kind of probably wants that power of being a vampire himself, so he's kind of in that internal debate. You get to see it also when he confronts her earlier on in the movie, where they're talking about her trying to send outside correspondence. But she also knows that there's only so much he can do to hurt her. Alright.
Get it together. Get it together. Get it Miss Kasuga. Get it together. Get it Miss Kasuga. Miss Kasuga. Were you listening? No? Come on. Get it together, will ya?
So, one of the other scenes that you get to see is them again looking through the window in the room, and you get to see an outside shot of where they're staying at. It only happens once, and I didn't notice it the first few times, but it is really cool, so I would just encourage you to take a look for this. It's just kind of cool to see it. But another fun thought is on the daytime after this shark sacrifice night, you get to hear squeaky noises to represent birds. And I don't know why I didn't notice the first few times, but when I finally did, I cracked up big time. It just was funny. So, of course, this prompts the one friend to get more and more curious about what's going on. While his other friend decides, I got a Dracula comic book, I'm good. And they go and they meet with Dracula. This is a typical scene that you see in a lot of the movies. Dracula's a little bit more eloquent. He's able to talk with them, try and waylay their suspicions, but at the same time coming across a little bit too guarded, a little bit too suspicious. And his just, no, you can't do that. The outsiders wouldn't like you to be a part of this or to come with. It's a little bit there. But another fun scene I wanted to go ahead and talk about before we start getting into the end game here is where you see two more people kind of broken down on somebody's lawn, is what it looks like. And they get inevitably killed by Sharkula, who flies out of the water, kills one, and kills the other one in his car, as you do. And I bring this up because I do kind of like this. Normally scenes like this, to make padding in the film, bother me with the pacing, but this is amusing. Their chemistry together was amusing, and I love watching the shark kills with the puppet. I wish we had more. So the one guy's like, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm going to go find out what's going on. And as he's going into the basement, Renfield's getting it from Dracula, who's saying, dude, that's my woman, hands off, I'll lay down the law with her, don't defy me. And this is a typical thing with Renfield and Dracula. Dracula has to lay down the law because Renfield is not entirely in his control, and he wants to make sure that he knows he is the boss. So as the college student goes downstairs, he sees the coffin, which has a little like nautical thing with like a net on it, and of course there's a woman tied up. She says, please untie me, but then she goes vampire on him before he even gets close. Not very nice about that. And one thing I wanted to note is, you notice there's like a cross necklace around her neck? Well, I guess they're not all vulnerable to crosses. But as he's distracted by this, Renfield sneaks up on him and takes him down. Somebody gotta die for their craziness. Meanwhile, our Dracula is going up to his bride-to-be and lays down the law with her as well. He's in a lay down the wall mood, I guess. And, you know, gets her a bite on the neck, and that's just, you know, how it is. So our other guy, when he wakes up in the morning, realizes, wait, my friend's gone, I gotta go look. And he sees Sharkula's glowing eyes in the water. He's like, well, shoot, all the stuff my friend was saying is true. It is a shark vampire. You know, I admit, I understand why he was a little bit pessimistic, or not pessimistic, kind of like doubtful of this.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Because, you know, you don't see many shark vampires out there. So he decides, okay, I'm going. So he finds Renfield, he slaps the crap out of him, and then gets him to talk about what's going on. So he then runs over to our female lead in order to figure out how to escape and maybe take down Dracula and his master. Well, Dracula's not too pleased with Renfield, messing with him multiple times. And he's fed to the female vampire. I find this a little bit ridiculous because the vampire woman slits his throat and just lets him fall to the floor. As much as she's been thirsting for blood, you would think it would be a scene like grabbing her from behind and like biting down and doing some blood effects like that. But instead it's slit throat, fall to the floor. Maybe it's a way of saying, it's like, you're so disgusting, I don't want to suck your blood. I don't know. Maybe that was what it was.
I'm gonna drink your blood like cranberry sauce, meanie.
But he goes in, and Dracula decides, okay, I'm going to talk with them. So he talks with our college student and the girl, and says, okay, I'll let y'all go, but you're going to have to help me take down Sharkula. So they make a plan. he gets tied up. They go down to get the ceremony where she's going to be fed to Sharkula, and he breaks free because he's not tied up as much and grabs a spear that Dracula laid down and stabs Sharkula. But then Dracula decides, I'm going to do something that you shouldn't do, even with real sharks, which is wagging your finger in their face, and gets his hand bitten. But the tiki torch nearby is used to finish Sharkula off. Amazingly simple. Just catch him on fire. You're good. But Dracula's saying, okay, well, now that's done, I'm going to turn the tables. As he's transforming into this kind of Dracula shark hybrid, they escape. And of course, as he's dealing with this, they manage to get down into the basement, kill off the vampire girl, and figure out how the heck to get out. And they look and say, maybe we can utilize Dracula's love for you to work on a plan. So Shark Dracula, he ends up killing off his minions because they're not going to serve a sea beast, even though they seem to be plenty subservient to the Sharkula man himself. And then goes to the basement to realize that his little vampiress is stabbed to death and killed. I noticed that they used the kind of gills there, and they had the webbing at first, but they got rid of the webbing on the hands. They think it looks like Polonius says that he thinks it might have fallen off and they didn't notice it, and that's kind of an interesting thing. I do find it interesting that the students decide to stick around and confront Dracula instead of trying to just, leave.
Are you crazy? We're tied behind the chainsaws.
Smart. Okay.
But I guess Dracula, now no longer being under Sharkula's control, is no longer trapped in the city, so maybe they were trying to keep him from coming after them. So with confronting Dracula, she's able to distract him while he puts a cross to his head and he finishes Dracula off. Again, remarkably simple finish for some strong villains. Almost anticlimactic when you think about it. I mean, Sharkula's killed by a tiki torch, and Dracula's killed by a cross to the head. Well.
Oh yes, of course. Sometimes I lose my train of thought. One time I missed the train because I was looking at a girl.
So, we kind of wrap up with another flame dancer scene, and the Sharkula eyes, indicating that maybe we'll see Sharkula again in the sequel. Sharkula has a lot of interesting ideas and techniques on display here. There's a lot of moderate to really fun acting, especially between Dracula and Renfield. The film manages to keep up some level of interest and campiness, with the shark itself making this a little bit interesting to watch. And though the film does have some issues with some slow pacing and a lot of blurry visuals, the overall product is, in my mind, a reasonable success. I think if you're looking for an unusual spin on the Dracula story, and you are a Polonia fan, you'll get your You'll get your money's worth out of this film. Well, this has been SeptumSin. Please like and subscribe, but we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.